right, let's talk real quick how I hold my pick when playing flat pick guitar. So I use a flat pick, that's why they call it flat picking guitar. And I like to use kind of a semi-pointed pick. Sometimes I use a rounder edge. Sometimes I use a little pointier edge. That's really up to your personal preference on how much of a point on the pick you like. Basically, the pointier the pick, kind of the more plastic sound you get, and the more rounded it is, the more kind of rounded tone you get. So that really depends on your own personal preference on how much you like. I also use a pick that has beveled edges that I really like that. But basically what I do for my pick grip is I put my thumb up like this, and basically kind of my fingers almost in what I would call like a trigger, or you could almost imagine you're going to like go to shake someone's hand, and I put the pick rested on my index finger, and then I put my thumb on top of it. So I do that. So basically I have this position. I put the pick on, and then I put my thumb on top of it. And there's a bunch of reasons why I do this. One is it's going to give me a good handle on the pick. A common beginner mistake I see a lot is basically using maybe just one finger and then your thumb. And that works okay at first because it feels like you have a lot of control over the pick because you're really grabbing it with just two fingers. But the downside to that is that you're basically putting a lot of stress on one finger, or your finger and your thumb, which over time is gonna kind of hurt you when you go to play faster and louder, I found. So basically if you do more of this position like I described, you get to use the weight of your wrist, which is heavier than a single finger. So that's really important when you go to play a note. I can use the natural weight of my wrist to drive through the strings. So that's why I do that. The other thing I do is you can see I've got a little bit of the pick showing. You know, you can experiment how much of the pick you have showing, but I do want the pick to be able to flop back and forth a little bit like this. I'm not gripping it really tight, and that's also really important. Obviously, the tighter you grip the pick, you'll feel your arms start to tense up. We want as little tension as possible. So obviously, if I'm gripping the pick too loose, it's going to fall out, but any tighter than the absolute minimum to keep it in my hand is what I'm going for. So I want to hold basically the pick as loose as possible in my fingers without it falling out, and then I can use the weight of my wrist to play through the strings. And I use the same pick grip for downstrokes and for upstrokes. I also use the same pick grip for strumming and for lead. That's really important. I don't recommend having like a certain pick grip for strumming and then you switch to a different pick grip for lead. I've seen other people do that, and I don't recommend that. I recommend having a uniformed pick grip. You know, no matter what pick you're playing, just, you know, hold it the same whether you're doing single notes or you're doing strumming. And lastly, you can experiment with the thickness of the pick as well. Similar to the pointed edge versus the rounded edge, a thinner pick, you're going to hear more of that plastic or whatever material. You're going to hear kind of more of that clicky pick sound. And some people like that for certain things. And a heavier pick, you're going to hear less of the pick. But a heavier pick takes more effort to drive through the strings, similar to like having medium gauge strings versus light gauge strings. So there is a point of diminishing returns. Obviously, if you had a super thick pick, it would take more effort. I think this pick it says it's a 50, which I believe is like a 1.25. So that's pretty thick, especially if you're in like electric guitar world. This would be considered like a really thick pick. But for bluegrass, it's a pretty standard size pick, and for acoustic guitar, for acoustic guitar, I recommend a thicker pick than I would use on an electric guitar. All right, so hopefully that gives you some tips on how to do the pick grip. And again, experiment a little bit, but basically, like I said, you just want to kind of give the thumbs up, put the pick in, and then drop your thumb down on top of it. and then just move it toward the strings, okay? All right, so hopefully that helps you out. All right, good luck.